Hi, I'm here to talk to you today about the strong interest inventory. I'm going to give a general introduction to the tool, an overview of the test development and construction, analysis of the psychometric properties, recommendations and guidelines for effective use and interpretation, and an overall critique of the instrument. So a general introduction to the tool, and I have my handy report here that I just completed for another time as well last week. So this tool, I think it's really relevant because it allows individuals to find out more about their interest, and it allows you to compare your interests to others in common occupational groups and occupational themes. So this test, it's important to note that it measures interests and not abilities. So an overview of the test development and construction. So this test was based on Strong's research going back to 1927, when there were some issues with putting military members into certain trades and finding out what they were interested in. So it's very old. It's been around for a very long time. And this is the only tool that my practicum employment agency has been using. You need to have accreditation and take some training as a career development practitioner to be able to administer this exam. So I'm just here to give you an overview today of doing some research on this tool. And so for the assessment development, it's also largely based on Holland's occupational themes, research going back before Strong into 1919, and the occupational themes code. So there are 6 different ones here that it groups people into. So there's realistic, investigative, artistic, conventional, enterprising, and social. So the strong interest inventory breaks that down even further into specific occupations. And so the analysis of psychometric properties. So this test is very reliable. I can be a testament to that because I took this test in 2022. I also took this last week. My top occupational theme descriptions of social, enterprising, and artistic are exactly the same as they were 3 years ago, which is very, very impressive. So the retest reliability is very strong. And in terms of the validity, there's been many studies. The norm group is very extensive adults. It also, there's been people in certain occupational groups tested to make sure all the 6 different themes are very relevant. It also goes into and analyzes male, female genders in occupational themes as well, which I find very interesting and helpful as well. And I mean, given how old the test is, that there's a ton of extensive research out there. It's still being used today, every day. Again, very commonly being used by employment agency as the only formal assessment tool. So recommendations and guidelines for effective use and interpretation. So when administering this test, I mean, as I mentioned before, the career development practitioner should be authorized and trained in giving this assessment. So this tool, it would be appropriate for anybody at the 9th grade education level and above that needs help with career, education choices, and wants to do some more self-exploration. I think it can provide a lot of insight into careers and school majors in particular. The 2004, the latest revision of this tool, it's also added in a few different things, such as the personal style scales. So, what kind of learning environment you work best in, your leadership style, your risk taking, your team orientation. There's just so much information here that you can delve into. So it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete the assessment online. The client should be able to do that on their own. And it's important that definitions should be provided to clients who don't understand certain occupations. You want to make sure that this test, it's all about their interests. There is no right or wrong answer. Answering this to the best of their knowledge, and limiting their test taker bias if there's any sort of cultural impact of certain occupations or certain interests. These should be discouraged as much as possible, and the test taker should really be free to complete the test and answer the best that they can without any other external influences. And as well, if the test taker is having a bad day, then they should be doing it another time, or mental health issues, anything like that. And so there's a couple different issues with interpretation. So the assessment, once it's completed, the link goes back to the career development practitioner, and the career development practitioner has time to gather and review the report and highlight different things for discussion with the client, which is really great. The client as well also gets this extremely detailed report. Mine is over 17 pages, and it also gives further descriptions that I can read as well on my own for each of the sections. So a couple of things too: flat scores, they should be interpreted with caution. So that's, for example, if these are all very low on the social, enterprising, artistic, investigative, realistic, and conventional themes. So the client could be indifferent. They may not know about the different themes. You definitely want to interpret those results with caution. Same thing with extremely high scores. So usually there's about 3 themes you can see here that will be ranked higher than others. But if they're all high, the client may be trying to please the career development practitioner. They may not have a good idea of the diversity of their interests or how to rank them, so they've just ranked everything as high, for example. Again, something to discuss with the client, and that would impact the reliability of this instrument. So generally, my overall critique of this instrument, I was really impressed when I took this test in 2022 and then again last week, and my general occupational themes were exactly the same and in the same order. So social, enterprising, and artistic. You can see just these codes here. And it's really helpful. Excuse me, this page here. So interests, like people, teamwork, helping, community service, what kind of work activities would be associated with that. So teaching, caring for people, counseling, training, potential skills, people skills, verbal ability, listening, showing, understanding, and then values, cooperation, generosity, service to others. So I can see a lot of relevance to myself. I find I lack a lot of confidence, so seeing this as well on paper and really being able to relate to that, it really speaks to me in that sense. And so, as well, these like the top 6 interest areas, it really gives me some different industries to explore. So, hospitality and tourism, um, that could be really interesting, marketing and advertising. Uh, some of these may be really hard to find in certain areas. The labor market just may not be able to offer anything. I was also having a discussion with the career advisor the other day, and with the RASIC, with the Holland 6 different occupational themes, it usually identifies about 3 different themes here, and it's very hard or almost impossible to find an occupation where all 3 are sort of met and your interests are fulfilled in one occupation, because there's usually at least one um, occupational theme that's just very different from the others. So, for example, with artistic, um, self-expression, art appreciation, communication, and culture, and how to merge that with enterprising and social for me. I'm really an ideas person, and I have a lot of trouble bringing things to fruition and to making decisions. In general, I mean, this instrument, it's been tested across cultures, but I think no matter what, there's so many different cultures that it's something to discuss with the client, the cultural context, the impact as well from the culture. As well, so it lists the academic majors, satisfaction, and you can see my strong majors. There's 20 different ones, which is a little bit overwhelming, but public administration and social service, professions, psychology, those are my top 2. That's what 2 of my degrees are in. And then this page is great because it gives you a whole summary, because there is so much information here. So it gives you your themes, then top 6 interest areas, personal styles. So I prefer working with people. I likely prefer a balance of working with theories and facts, learn through lectures and books, may like taking risks, participating in teams. And then it gives the areas of least interest. So usually this is a great talking point as well, because a lot of people are more familiar with what they don't like than what they do like. And then it also gives you a response summary. So this is really relevant for the career development practitioner to review, because it shows you how many responses that they said they strongly liked that interest, like, indifferent, dislike, or strongly dislike. So the career development practitioner would be able to use this, like I mentioned earlier, about the flat scores or the very high scores. And then, the occupation RASIC percentages. So this just goes to show you what the percentages of the questions that you answered fits into each one of these, the 6 categories. So I found it very interesting that my realistic and conventional interests were 0. So I wouldn't necessarily rule out any of those occupations, but I could definitely relate to that and would provide the client with more information on what that means, as well as not to interpret this assessment as sort of cold hard facts. And then, so at the end of the assessment, it also provides you with a complete list of the strong occupation satisfaction scores and my strong occupations ranked. There's actually, it lists 243 different occupations here, which is a little bit of, again, overwhelming information. But I found this very interesting to see, how satisfied I would be with that occupation. And I find that's really relevant to me now because I'm midway through my career, so that's really my focus is satisfaction. I'm not new, I'm not starting out, I'm partway through and still have another decade or so to go at least. And it is super great because if you click on each of these occupations, it'll take you to ONET. And you can do a lot of research on what that occupation is, the outlook, the wage, the job description, the work environment. There's a ton of information. So the strong interest inventory, it is a really, really great tool if you're stuck. But again, it only measures interests, so it doesn't measure abilities. So depending on your client situation, it's really important to take into consideration their personality, their abilities, their aptitudes, their skills, and their past history as well. So interests are just one important aspect, but I think it is great to look at interests again because they are predictive of future satisfaction and future success. And the strong interest inventory, it is a great tool to look into and for career development practitioners to have the training for. Thank you.